Morning, everyone. I'm laughing because I was thinking, oh, thank goodness things are getting back to normal, and because things are getting back to normal, I'll get in my routine, and once I get in my routine, life will be good. And lo and behold, I forgot to do the Saturday morning preview of Sunday morning sermon here. I can't. Well, maybe I could do this. So that was one of my Christmas presents. I love that I can hang with our house. I hang the American flag and my adopted state of Tennessee's flag, and that's one of the highlights. Anyway, so let's excuse me. I'm sorry, I got a little cough. So let's talk about Sunday sermon. So I said last Sunday we were going to cover two texts that traditionally ministers just kind of stay away from. Not all ministers, maybe, I'm sure people say, I don't know, ministers say, I preach that text all the time, but it's just not a go-to text. I don't care what they say. Last Sunday's sermon was from the Gospel of Luke, and it was the Simeon's blessing of Mary and Jesus, where Simeon was awakened to the destiny of the Messiah, and what that means for you and for me. This Sunday, we're going to look at the wise men and the Gospel of Matthew. And I know what you're saying. Come on, John. We talk about the wise men all the time, especially when we get to Epiphany. Monday is Epiphany. That's when we celebrate when the wise men came to see Jesus. So this will be the Sunday closest to Epiphany. And you're right. We do talk about the wise men and the wise men's gift. There are a couple of things before I kind of tell you what we're going to talk about. One is wise men is probably not the best translation of the Greek word. Probably the best translation of the Greek word is magi, or even magician. That being said, these were probably learned men. And of course, they see the star and they follow the star and they get to Jerusalem, and they said, where is the King of the Jews? We've come to worship him. And of course, Herod, who is the King of the Jews, took an interest to this information. And so he asked his wise men, the teachers of the law, chief priests, if the Messiah was going to be born, where's he going to be born? And they said Bethlehem. So he gets with the wise men and ask kind of, how long has this been going on? How old could this, King of the Jews, how old could he be? And then he said, listen, why don't you go to Bethlehem, find him, and then come back and tell me where he is, and so I can go and worship him. But, Herod has no intention of doing that. He's not going to, he doesn't want to worship him. There can only be one King of the Jews, and Herod's going to make sure that's him. And so the wise men go to Bethlehem, and they find Jesus just as they were told, and he's with Mary, and they live in a house. So clearly his accommodations have changed, and for the better, I get, and they worship him, and so that's the story we know. But Matthew goes on to say that the wise men had a dream not to go back to Jerusalem, not to go back to Herod, and so they went back home another way. And Joseph also has a dream, and this is the part we don't talk about a lot. Joseph has a dream, but in his dream, an angel of the Lord says to him, "You need to take your son and your wife, and you need to flee, because Herod's about to create all holy hell on the city of Bethlehem." And that's what Joseph does. And Herod did create all holy hell when he ordered the deaths of all male children ages 2 and below. So what we're going to talk about Sunday is this notion of obedience, being obedient. And I think that's what I admire about Joseph the most. He is obedient. That's not to say he didn't have his questions. That's not to say he had his doubts. It's not to say he didn't wrestle with what was being asked of him. First, to take Mary as his wife and to bring this child into the world. But second, to flee again, to leave again. And yet he does. And so the question I'm asking is, where do we see ourselves and where do we see the church in this story? Are we that obedient that we would listen to God, listen to God's Spirit, listen to wise counsel, and seek to do what is faithful? And so I look forward to being with you. I appreciate Martha, our director of communications, for saying, hey, where's your It's cold, by the way, and I've got shorts on. Can you see my? So I want to make sure I got shorts. See, it's cold, and yeah, look forward to being with you Sunday as we celebrate when the wise men came to see Jesus.